Welcome everyone to the Unfiltered with Roxy podcast. I'm your host, Roxy and Dr. And we're here today for the unfiltered truth about personal growth. And with me today is a very awesome lady, brilliant mind. She's a double board certified adult and child adolescent psychiatrist. She's a mindset coach, a health equity consultant, and the brilliant mind behind Dr. KimAnswers. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Dr. Kim Gordon.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that introduction. It's like we should all have cheerleaders in our life that introduce us that way. I want to just start by thanking you for your friendship. Yes.
I'm just so glad that we reconnected.
Yeah. And we've crossed paths in different spheres in the workplace, right? But I think sometimes you just know you can connect with people. And I just really appreciate your unfiltered authenticity, right? Where you're showing up in spaces where oftentimes we're not welcome or even invited.
Yeah.
But we come to bring a spirit of joy and also bring a spirit of love. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That's such a because when we're in the workplace, we think we have to have yes, we have to have boundaries, but you still have to show up as yourself. So that way you're still connecting and doing your higher goal, which is hopefully that everyone you get in contact with, you are a light to them and encouraging them as well.
Yeah. For a long time being in a space like this, even just, being on camera, oftentimes isn't not necessarily authentically showing up. But I think I've shown up in spaces as an academic leader, a clinical educator, as a psychiatrist, as a churchgoer, as a person that really didn't recognize always how people experience me. I was very aware of how I experienced them. We all know about that.
Yeah.
But not necessarily thinking enough about how people experience me. And you reminded me of an experience you had with me that I forgot about.
Yeah.
But I was in that place, in the workplace, where I was experiencing invalidation. I felt unworthy. Even though I was in a leadership position, I felt unworthy. Because so many things in my life had told me that success looked a certain way.
Yeah.
And I just didn't look the way success looked, right? I had an accent, I come from the country, all of these things, right? We bring those things to the workplace and in our own lives. But one day you saw me and I saw you, right? And it was a validating moment.
Yeah.
And it's just,
and I don't even know, you didn't know that I felt bad at that moment. And it wasn't like a big thing. And that's why we always have to just listen to the inner spirit and say those words that it was like,
right.
So I was just opening my eyes very widely for those that are just listening to the audio, because it's like, wow, I don't know why this human being has said this nice thing to me, but it just gave me encouragement and fuel to keep going. So,
well, thank you. And I think we have a lot to discuss in our journey.
Personal growth.
And I see they're saying a request to join you. Should I have you join me live? Yeah, do that.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
Does that mean I have to accept it? Yes.
She's going to accept me. We're going to accept each other.
Go live.
Yay.
So we're going live on Instagram together, which is a lot to juggle, even though it would seem like it's not. I don't know why. It's not like we have to do anything extra. It's just now we're on both Instagrams.
Oh, maybe that won't work.
Nope. Yes, it is.
I'm sorry. Maybe.
And just like that.
We'll come back. That's okay. I'm sorry. I messed us up.
No, you are good.
It's making an echo.
So who is it? This one? That's it.
Okay.
So that we should be good now. All right. So personal growth and development. We throw that around a lot, but what does it really mean?
Well, when I started my coaching company, for instance, I didn't realize how much technical skills I don't have.
Yeah.
And so that is a personal growth. And you guys, if you hear echo, tell us, like send us a message, say, hey, you hear the echo. Because we're really, let me see.
Is that working?
I turned it on mute, so hopefully it'll just be coming from that down.
Okay.
So you need to turn your volume up, right?
Oh,
okay. The streamer. Okay. Yeah, the technical difficulty is still a little bit of an echo. Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna disconnect. Where is it? Don't worry. Because you're live still.
Okay, yes.
So, the imperfection for me is I like to show up ready. Like I have to have everything figured out. Like even
I tried to help with that so that, when people come on, they feel comfortable.
Oh my gosh, you not only do I feel comfortable, you guys, I'm having to talk to, not only do I feel comfortable, I feel ready. But I think that my point of saying that was not to say that we wasn't ready, but I think sometimes people don't show up because they're worried that if something happens, if they're, how am I gonna manage that, or what are people gonna think about me if I don't know certain things? You got to be in the room.
Yeah,
you have to actually show up.
Yeah.
My mom used to say that half the battle is showing up, but I actually think that's 80% of the job.
Yeah.
80% of what we do every day is show up.
Yeah.
We show up for our kids. We show up for our spouses. We show up for our coworkers. We show up for our family and our friends, and we figure it out together.
Yeah.
Because we can't figure it out by ourselves. And I spend a lot of time trying to figure things out on my own because someone had told me that that's what success looks like. Right. And so I want to encourage people to think about that. Like, how many times have you not shown up because you were worried about what people would think if you wasn't ready?
Right.
As if they were ready, as if any of us will ever be ready, right? Life can bring you challenges unexpectedly, and you just have to navigate around those challenges with grace and dignity, right?
And I think don't be around people that aren't going to have your back if you do need extra help. Like, those aren't the people that you should align yourself with too.
I know you got my back, so I'm good. I'm good. We got each other's back. But yeah, to that point, there are people that they don't, not necessarily that they don't have your back. They haven't experienced enough the value of having other people's back because someone didn't have their back. And so instead of us pointing fingers and saying, hey, this person doesn't support me, this person is hurting me, let's think about why that person is that way and not necessarily have them in your space and take your energy away, but become a little bit more compassionate and aware of what their struggle must be like, that they never had anybody to do that for them. So they have an inability to do it for others.
Yeah. That part.
And then we also got to know that the wicked one is always there trying to do his stuff too,
making it worse than what it really is, and even how we perceive things. Remember that's like the last time that this happened to you, and blah blah blah, when it could really have nothing to do with that.
Most of the time, it has nothing to do with us. Actually, I was reading the 4 agreements, and it was talks about being impeccable with your words, not taking things personally. But most of the time when people are showing up, they're not showing up.
I'm going to write that one down as a resource. Yeah. The 4 agreements to read again.
Yeah, they're not showing up with you in mind. They're showing up with themselves in mind. And that's okay. We're all showing up with a need, But I'm becoming to recognize that the needs that I have is not going to necessarily come from people. People will fulfill a need, but that source of them being able to fulfill it is actually coming from their own self-care, but also their relationship with God, right? Because I think sometimes, we show up wounded and then we wound another person, but our intent was never to wound that person. Right. And maybe the people who wound them, their intent wasn't to hurt them too. We don't know what's in people's hearts. God knows what's in their heart. But we do know that if we do the work for ourselves, we can be better.
Yeah. So for personal growth and development, what does that mean for you? People say it a lot, like, I'm working on myself. I've heard people say that before. I'm working on myself. This is a season of working on myself. And then you're like, you're just as wackadoodly as you were before.
Right. Well, they could be working on themselves, and that's okay. But I think And I think sometimes when you're working on yourself, you realize how wacky doodle you really are. I mean, it just kind of
I can attest to that.
It comes with the territory. And I've never used the frame wacky doodle. So yeah, we're going to be laughing about you guys. Get prepared for that. No, I think personal growth and self-improvement it can appear like a fad, right? Like we're all kind of like trying to do it, but really it's a transformational journey that you're having at each stage of your life, each stage of your development. I'm a child psychiatrist. So think about all the growth that a young baby has before they're an adult.
It's so yummy. Yeah.
Gosh, the Creator created us to always be transforming, right? And in that same way, some of us are engaging in, maybe an appreciation of having more gratitude in their life. So my goal right now is to actually cultivate relationships and have more gratitude for the relationships that I have. But I can, in that moment, be upset about something and then, curse the person out, right? That doesn't mean that I wasn't
That's true.
intentionally hoping to,
a couple days last week.
Right?
Yes.
So I think, to answer your question, I think personal growth is when you decide that with intention, when you decide that my sole purpose on this earth is to transform, right? We were created to renew our minds literally every day, sometimes every second.
That's so good.
Sometimes every minute, sometimes every hour. Like we're always renewing ourselves. And there are keys to renewing yourself that I think I missed along the way, right? I thought, I got to get my mind right. That means I need to read more books.
Right.
I need to become a doctor. I need to be in every room, at every table, in every conversation. And I would say things like, if I'm not at the table, y'all, I'm on the menu. So I'm going to bombard myself in that room uninvited. And I'm going to serve the people that I want to serve. And for me, that was like, people who I felt were oppressed, people who look like me, people who have maybe had disadvantages in their life. But what I've learned in my journey and transformation is the three things that was missed. Well, the two things that was missing was the comfort, the comforter, right? And also being joyful.
Yeah.
And joyful doesn't mean that you're, always happy. Okay. I've had a lot of grief in my life, a lot of trauma. I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was in residency. And up until that point, my whole mission was to make her have the life that I felt she deserved. Because she worked so hard, and I wanted a single mother who had worked so hard to actually get something out of that. And then I discovered that there were other plans, like that my journey would not continue with her. And I had to figure out how to accept it. And I didn't. I accepted it by saying, well, if that happened to my mom and she couldn't have this happy life that I wanted for her, then I'm going to make sure. Can I curse? I'm going to make damn sure that people like her get a better experience than she did. We don't get to choose the cards that we're dealt, right? But I do think if we decide to cultivate a spirit of rest, reflection, renewing our energy every day by being mindful of what energy and what space we bring, strategizing with people who love us, who care about us, strategizing with God about what his plans are for us. I go back to reflection because every time I strategize, I go right back to reflection because when I think I'm ready to operationalize myself, I realize I'm not. I realize I'm not ready. And I think when we incorporate that reflection, renewing our energy, strategizing, we begin to thrive.
Right.
Through adversity, right? Black people, indigenous people of color, all of these people are highly resilient, emotional people. Everybody's resilient, to be quite honest, because we have a lot going on in the world. But I think that emotional resilience did not necessarily always cultivate joy.
Right.
Did not cultivate that time for rest.
Right.
And my greatest joy comes when I'm resting, right?
Because then it's like it's no expectations.
Right.
I'm just there. One of the great things about you as a health equity coach, I think now I understand a little bit more about your passion and authenticity when you talk about wanting to have those experiences, for everyone to have those experiences of healing. And like true healing, not the doctor just making you do a surgery or making you do a treatment that doesn't mean that it's necessarily good for you.
Yeah. I mean, treatment that's a, oh gosh,
that's a whole other thing, but I'm just saying, I understand now why you're passionate about health equity. So when an organization is coming to you, I can see you and your wheels turning about, wait, no, that's actually not equity.
Yeah.
No, you're not, that's not what we're doing right
well,
here.
I start sitting back because I think that's such a powerful question. I think for me, medicine for me was my strategy to really be a part of the conversation of healing to a nation. I think part of being a kingdom builder, someone, who's operating their faith is actually answering the call, whatever that call is. You can be a singer, a dancer, whatever. But when you answer that call, for me, it was like, I want to heal people.
Yeah.
I want people to feel better. But when I got into the medical field, there was a lot of assimilations, traumas. There was a lot of conversations about how should I show up? My hair has to look a certain way. I have to speak a certain way. I have to have a certain amount of knowledge. And I was like, well, the people who I know, they felt the healing when I just would sing a song. So why do I need to do all of these things now? But because I thought that was the way, I put on my white coat, I put on my stethoscope, I read more books. I stayed up late, hours and hours reading all this content. And not that was bad. It was actually good. I learned a lot, but it also took me away from rest. It took me away from cultivating relationships with people who really cared about me. It made me isolate myself and often sometimes judge people for their struggle.
Like, you're not working on yourself.
Yeah. Are you working on yourself? Self-improvement today? Like, because if you was working on yourself, you would be good like me. Right. The healing comes in, and when we have a systems of care that's healing centered, it comes in when we recognize what people actually need.
Yeah.
They talk about the social determinants of health as if it's like a, buzzword, but social determinants of health means we're looking at what drives health and wellness for people in their communities, where they love, where they work, where they play, where they cultivate their gifts. And that's healing centered.
Right.
We move away from that when we talk about, oh, I need you to take this medication, or I need you to be therapized. Not that therapy and medication isn't great. I'm in therapy, you guys. I go see my therapist regularly. I take medications, people.
Every week. Love Dr.
I love my medications, right? But, where I feel the most satisfied with the help of these, leaders in medications and therapy is when I cultivate relationships, that connection, right?
That's so good.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about the growth part, what about, and we do get to this point sometimes, what about when you feel stuck? Like you're doing all the things. And you touched on it a little bit, but you're doing all the things. I'm reading all the books. I'm looking into getting out of a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship or a toxic job. But you still feel stuck. Like that next opportunity maybe didn't come yet. Or like for me, I'm in school now learning about social determinants of health, but it's like, that's a long process. Like, oh, I'm going to get educated. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's going to change, but it's a long process to the change, and you can feel stuck.
So I don't know, you guys, I'm a fan of cartoons. We were talking about how I love to laugh, but I went to a movie recently and I didn't laugh. I cried the entire time. And sometimes I was weeping. And
what
sometimes
movie is this?
Inside Out, right?
I love Inside Out. We went to go see that with my niece. Okay, go ahead.
So, I want to answer your question by thinking about the beauty of that movie, Inside Out.
Great movie.
But it's a great movie, and I encourage everybody to watch it. But, there were all these emotions in the room, and they were sending signals and messaging about what your core identity, your sense of self should be, right? For me, my sense of self was always, a little bit skewed because I felt unworthy of what the blessings were in my life, right? And so the little girl in the movie, she would say things like, I'm a good person. That was like my defining core belief as a kid. I'm a good person. And things will come and then, make you feel like you're not a good person. there was other things like I'm good at hockey. I think it was what her thing was.
Hockey.
I was like, I'm good at singing, so I'm going to use my voice. We all have these things that we're good at that we think defines who we are.
Right.
Right. And if we don't get that trophy, if we don't get that reward, if we don't get that immediate result, and social media makes you think you have to get the real immediate result. Right away. Quick. Microwave. We're the microwave generation, right? I was born in the 80s. But if we don't get that quick result, we assume that it's over.
Yeah.
That we haven't grown. But my life has taught me over and time again that the lessons that I learned a decade ago was preparing me for the next decade.
Yeah.
And so you may not see the fruition of your labor until later. Think about how a tree grows. Like we think about nature.
Yeah.
The roots are so deep. Yeah. Right? Underneath the ground, there is so much activity that's happening that you don't see. Yeah. We get to see the bloom. And I'm a late bloomer, by the way. We get to see the bloom and then we think, oh, this is the great thing. Right. Every year when I go outside of my house, everybody's trees are up and they're beautiful. And mine is just taking forever. I'm like, this is not right. Why is my tree not looking like everybody else's tree? And then all of a sudden it blooms. Yeah. And I forget that it bloomed every year. I start that whole cycle again. I'm going to get to your point. So in the Inside Out movie, what I learned is we can't take away all the bad parts to create what we want, the version we want of ourselves. We have to incorporate all of the emotions, all of the thoughts into one. And joy comes when we recognize that all of those things are valuable. Yeah. Joy was like doing the work.
Yeah.
But joy was doing the work without the comfort.
Right.
Joy was doing the work without peace because joy thought that I'm going to take all the bad stuff away so she doesn't have to work and it'll be fine. Right. God doesn't operate that way. Right. He doesn't say, I'm going to take all the bad away. He said his yoke is easy and his burdens are light.
Right.
He brings us comfort, but he also helps us transform. Right. And so that movie to me, maybe they didn't mean to give that message. Maybe they had something else in mind when they created the movie. But that movie to me inspired me to cultivate joy, fulfillment and joy. That's actually a part of my Burnout to Breakthrough 12-month program with women. You go through these stages of life where you lose that and you lose sight of that. Yeah. But joy needs to be at the wheel, right? Some of us think authenticity needs to be at the wheel, or love needs to be at the wheel. All of those things need to be at the wheel, but fundamentally, renewing your mind every day means cultivating a spirit of joy, not necessarily being happy all the time. A spirit of joy is saying the joy of the Lord is my strength. He's my comforter. He can guide me through things. I'm a Christian, y'all, so that may not be your thing. But even if it's not, you can have inner peace by knowing that you can cultivate a spirit of gratitude. You can be happy about what's going right while you're worried about the things that's going wrong. Yeah. All of those things could be happening at the same time.
Yeah. And I think I never thought of joy as not having the helper, but I think even if you're not able to understand the Holy Spirit, if you can understand your inner man and that voice that's inside that talks to you, that would be, because it'll still get you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will get you there.
Yeah.
And I think that we're all trying to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the journey. That's personal growth. Right?
Yeah.
And it looks different for different people and at different times, at different stages. But we're all hoping to get to the finish line, right? And some of us are so afraid to, I'm going to use the word change, which scares people, right? Some of us are so afraid to change. We say things like, well, this is who I am, so this is going to have to accept it. I don't think any of us know who we are. I haven't met the best version of me yet. You haven't. No one has. That's Oprah Winfrey hasn't met the version of herself.
Yeah.
But she cultivates a spirit of every day helping others, not only herself, but helping others be mindful of that journey and embrace it, celebrate it. I have so many accolades and things that's happened in my life that I'm becoming to be thankful for. But I spent a lot of my life in despair.
Yeah.
Burned the crap out. Yeah. Exhausted. Smiling, showing up. But I'm here. Yeah, Kim is great.
You're great.
But then I go home like worrying, typing away, strategizing, not praying, and falling in my bed so exhausted to the point where I suffered.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think with us trying to do all the work by ourselves, that contributes to the burnout as well. So thinking about that, what is the definition of burnout?
Well,
that's like
don't
a
read
good
a
lean
textbook.
in.
Don't read a textbook. Okay, you can. Sorry, I'm just kidding. The definition of burnout for me is when we try to do things that's outside of our capacity and we become exhausted as a result. Now that may confuse people because they may say, well, you know, I'm working really hard and people are not really appreciating or validating the work I do. If you're a doctor, you may say, you know, I'm spending all this time writing all these copious notes. Nobody reads those notes. The insurance companies are not helping people. Like, you know, all of those things you may be thinking. And that is compassion fatigue because you're like, well, what am I supposed to do about it? But I don't think that any of us by ourselves have the capacity to change the world. I think to be a change maker, you become collaborative. Like you start saying to yourself, I can't do it alone. I'm not going to do it alone. So invite other people to be a part of the solution, right? There's a lot of key stakeholders in our lives, people who have shown up with the capacity that they had to give. You know, some of us are resource depleted. We understand that. But being resource depleted is not an excuse, right? It's an inspiration. It's a signal. It's like saying, well, if I'm resource depleted, I'm going to actually cultivate some new gifts inside of me. You know, my mom was she was extraordinary because she didn't have everything she needed, but she created beauty every time she showed up because she learned skills that made her more resilient. Now, if that skill made her more resilient, there was a cost. There was hurt involved, right? But I was very happy to have a kind of mother like her because she would say to me, Kim, if I only had 2 sticks and I was in a ditch and that's all I could play with, I would find joy. I would find joy in that. I was like, Mom, I was so angry. I'm like, why are you in a ditch? Why are you in a ditch with like, you know, mud? Right. But she was saying, I don't need much to be joyful. But I do want to be connected to you and I want you to be seen and I want to see others. And that's important, right?
She sounds like awesome. I'm kind of touched because my mom was the same way. Grew up in abject poverty. Like in Panama, they were in the jungle, anyways, it's not the greatest circumstance, but she was someone when she showed up, she loved beauty. So she was the housekeeper and her thing was the house was going to be clean. Stuff was going to look beautiful. Anyone who came into the house, she was always like, oh, how can I help you? Like just thinking and caring about her needs because when she grew up, she didn't have that. And just like not always like, oh, I'm so happy, but just had a peace and a joy about her. So it's like, I feel like that's why we're also connected as well. Cause we kind of have the same thread of those mothers that just really cared and showed up for us, even though they didn't have all the resources because she wasn't perfect, but it's like, she knew that she had to be that for us, for her kids.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's something I've been thinking about for a while as it relates to what happens when a resilient people who've been oppressed obtain more over time. You know, I do think we've created a problem for ourselves in our society where we've oppressed. I'm going to say this and I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm being unfiltered because you said I can be unfiltered.
Yes.
You know, I was in the DEI spaces a lot in my career, you know, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And those spaces did not feel good to me. It felt like it was an oppositional camp. Oftentimes, you know, you would try to bring an important message along and then people would ask, well, what if we do that, what's going to happen to someone else, right? And I think our minds think like that as human beings, but it was unfortunate, right? Let me get back to my point because I lost it a little bit. The unfiltered version of me is thinking, what happens when someone is oppressed? They learn skills. They cultivate gifts. They think outside the box. They become creative. And Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color are showing up in the workplace with skills that wasn't by design. It was it was ascribed to them. It was actually forced upon them.
Yeah.
And then there's a level of resentment for the other people in the room because they're like, okay, who does she think she is?
Right.
Well, I don't think nothing of myself,
Right.
to be quite honest. If
Right.
you ask me, you probably would know that.
Right.
But what I do know is that myself alone can't make this happen.
Right.
So I'm going to take whatever I have and I'm going to make something good out of
Yeah.
it. I'm going to get my gumbo and I'm going to put everything in the pot and I'm going to eat it, because that's what you gave me. You gave me the leftovers and I made it.
And now I'm going to make it.
And I'm going to make it something
awesome.
Awesome. And now everybody go to New Orleans and eat that gumbo. I'm from New Orleans, y'all. I want to go to New Orleans, get my gumbo. But anyways, the point is people who have been in those situations oftentimes know the gift of self.
Yeah.
They know the value of God because they say, how did this miracle happen that I can have this beautiful daughter in this home and raise her being what I've been through?
Right.
I don't have any choice but to be grateful. I don't have a choice but to have gratitude because I know where I've been.
Right.
And I know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's powerful about that. And I think we share that. But we do have a generation of young people who may have not had that struggle. Thank God. We don't want them to have that struggle.
Right.
But I do think that pain makes you more purposeful.
Yeah.
It makes you more driven in some ways, which is why God intended for us to have some things happen, right? But I think that we as humans have the ability to have dominion over the world.
Yeah.
We decide what kind of version of us we are going to be. And I'm worried about, no, I'm not. Take that back. I'm not worried about what's going to happen to the world because I already know that's not in my control. But I am worried about people who think that it is in their control.
Yeah.
I'm worried about them. Yeah.
Wow, that was so good.
It's deep, y'all. It's deep sometimes, and I worry
love that though. And I think, but you have to go deep because we had talked about this when we had met. Like, you're not going to be able to have like that real change by like the superficial conversation or, oh, send in and get this book. If you get this book and read it, you're going to be whole in 10 days. And if you do all the steps, and it's like the work is the reflection, which when we were talking about that, I told you I cringed. When you said reflection, I was like, because that's so hard to look at yourself, not through like a harsh lens, but wait, am I the toxic person in this situation?
Yeah.
Is it me? Wait a minute, I'm the common denominator. Okay, I need to change some things. Then it's like, how am I going to change it? Okay, now I have to purpose to X, Y, Z, be grateful because sometimes we're used to complaining.
Yeah.
I think that's what I've learned, what you're saying. Like sometimes we get so used to, I guess, kind of being negative, but just not seeing the good stuff. And I think that also has to do with not being spiritual, because if you really are in your inner man and you're spiritual, you don't think certain ways.
Yeah, no, I do. I'm in the word. I still think certain things, but I cast it down.
Yeah.
Right. I'm more aware that those certain things. I'm aware when I'm feeling a certain way, what kind of things I need to do to cultivate my self-care. Like I did the master class a few weeks ago and I was exhausted afterwards for weeks because I was exhausted because I pushed myself because I wanted to serve. Right. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, we all have things to do. Sometimes we got to work hard. But then I realized that everything that I shared was already in me. And I just spent more hours worrying about, is it in me?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's important for us to also recognize that you may be showing up thinking you're doing the work, and yet you did do some work. I don't want to take away the work from people do, but who's doing the real work?
Right.
Right. And that's important too, because you're not doing it about yourself.
Right.
And I think sometimes we feel like we're doing it by ourselves.
And you're not.
I created these like goals for myself over the past 12 months. And it inspired me to want to share that with other people. But I know it comes with a certain level of responsibility.
Right.
And so I'm going to be responsible and say authentically, most days I feel like I'm a hot mess. A hot mess.
Yeah.
That's a feeling, right? It's not truthful. It's not truthful, right? Sometimes it is.
Sometimes the meltdown is needed.
Right.
Family knows that. sometimes they deserve it. But yes, I think when I think about personal growth, I think we think, oh, that means you got it all together and it's a book out there, get your shit together. And she talks about that. It's like, it's not this nice, perfect box thing. Like, it's gonna be messy.
It has to be messy. Not that it's gonna be messy. It has to be messy. There's this great book. It's devotion, actually. It's a day-by-day devotion that I cultivate in my life. And I've listened to it over and over and over again, and I'm always learning new things. And it talks about, emotionally unhealthy spirituality. It's day by day, and I may be saying the title wrong, forgive me, but day by day devotion of emotional unhealthy spirituality by Peter Scazzaro. And it talks about the steps that you can cultivate in your life that will give you the ability to really appreciate and endure pain. Not that pain is going to last forever because we know the seasons change, but endure pain, but see the beauty in it, right? See the beauty in burnout, right? Which I had burnout twice, y'all. I'm a veteran of burnout, survivor. Yeah. Hey, and actually, in psychiatry, being authentic like I am now and telling my story, that's taboo. I'm taking a courageous step to share what I've been through, the tears, the sobbing, the disappointments, walking away from jobs because I didn't feel like it was good for me. Feeling like I had failed because I didn't keep that that position. What are people going to think about me if I do become a coach? Right. Aren't you a psychiatrist? Why would a doctor be a coach? Why not? Right. What are we waiting on? Are we waiting for someone else to give us permission to live our lives? Yes, we are sometimes. And that's unfortunate, but I'm going to encourage people to be yourself. Mm-hmm. Not that self that's angry, irritable, depressed. Be the self that's inspired, that those emotions that you have, you can cultivate those emotions. They tell you something about yourself, what you need. It's actually telling you, your emotions tell you what you need. If I'm depressed, it tells me that I need to, I'm going to use despair because that's when I have a lot. Hopelessness and despair is me sometimes.
If you watch the Emotions movie, you know what we're talking about. The emotions actually have characteristics. It's just like
always down,
energy.
But despair and sadness is so reflective. Yeah, it's so aware of what other people need. Yeah, it's so kind.
She was, I
mean, she knew the whole textbook of Joy's life. Right? Was it Joy? I don't know the main character's life, but she knew the little girl heart. Yeah, she knew her heart because she felt everything. Right. She felt it so much, and so I think so for some of us who are empaths, we feel so much. Yeah. And that means that we need to cultivate this period of, I'm using cultivate a lot. Maybe it's about growth.
But growth,
it's growth. But use this period in your life when you're feeling the most hopeless or depressed to fill your cup. Yeah. Decide to have the boundaries to say, I'm not going to give anything until my cup is filled. Right. And when it's filled, you're going to wait because you're going to strategize. I'm not going to give anything else until it's overflowing. Right. Until everything, what people should be getting from all of us is the overflow. Right. But the only way you have overflow is if you cultivate rest. Right. That's when you soar. I'm using my mnemonics because I want you guys to come and follow me. But I want to soar.
Check out Dr.KimAnswers.com. That's the same Instagram. So go on to Instagram, follow her there. Digging in a little bit deeper. And I don't know how I know you've shared a lot with me. You're sharing a lot with your mentees in your coaching program, your Burnout to Breakthrough coaching program. When you had to, and we both have similar stories with that as well. And I think maybe we all go through that path where that you've just outgrown certain stuff, and that makes the burnout when you try to stay there. But with your personal story of, okay, this is not working for me. What were the steps that you had to go through? And it could be mentally and naturally, like, I had to get my savings. Just choose one of them to like share with us a little bit more.
Well, for me, I think the biggest one was embracing failure. And that is a loaded word for some people because you go into an environment and maybe you're being invalidated. Maybe people are being hostile to you. Maybe they're demeaning your value or worth. I mean, maybe all of those things are happening all at the same time and you're angry about it. How dare they do this? And I have to pay for take care of my family. I got kids' tuition, all of that. And then you tell yourself, I'm failing them.
Yeah.
Right? I'm failing everybody. Like, I can't do this on this job and I don't know what I'm going to do and I can't pay my bills. Embrace what failure tells us. Like you said, my exiting strategy was to be okay with disappointment.
Yeah.
Because that's what it really is. It's not that you failed anything. You're disappointed.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed, but I was showing up disappointed and I was hurting people. God, I'm saying this on like Instagram. I don't mean that I was cursing people out or saying bad words or even being hostile, which was, said about me. But I was hurting people because I was afraid.
Yeah.
And anxiety can make people hurt people. You saw in the movie Inside Out. Anxiety was like, I'm sorry. She was on it. She was on it. And she was hurting the one thing that she wanted to love the most. Right. And she was sorry about it, but she couldn't help herself because she was so anxious. Right. And so I had to understand that I had failed to cultivate love and compassion for myself, that I didn't inquire when people were not letting me be authentic.
Right.
I wanted to show them that, if I show up and I be more authentic, they're going to appreciate me more. No, sometimes you have to be silent. Sometimes you have to be okay with that silence. It's your time to grow, right? Maybe I won't get the accolade that I had hoped for, but I'll develop a skill set that will help me on the next stage that I'm on, and so I'm thankful for what has happened. Marvin Sapp says, I thank you for it all.
Right.
I'm a singer, y'all. The good, bad, the ugly, great and small. I'm not going to sing it now, but I thank him for it all.
Yeah.
Because I've learned something about myself and I hope that you learn something too.
Yeah.
I hope that you're inspired to be you. I do think when all of us show up our authentic self, it encourages other people to do the same. And that's what DEI really should be about. It's a sense of belonging, inclusivity.
However you show up.
However you show up, it's okay.
Yeah.
I
had to go into other stuff, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because everyone, the funny thing is, I had listened to this TED Talk, and the lady who was describing how DEI is not great for everyone was a white lesbian lady who was taking care of her mom, but she made valid points. Like, all the DEI work was help the moms who were working have like daycare, and like all the stuff that her job had implemented were not helpful to her. That was helping her mom. So she like needed different healthcare. She needed different schedule. She didn't have a husband. So like you saying that their spouse can do this, that wasn't helpful for her. So it was actually more hurtful. And I was like, why is it that we think that checking off the boxes is going to help someone feel included? Like, we have to just bring every person that's presented to a workplace, to a relationship, needs to be accepted for what they are. Because then every white woman isn't a lesbian, and you know what I'm saying? Like, every Black woman doesn't have this and this and needs help with. So it's like they really, and when I say they, I mean corporations, society has not figured that out. Like, we need to just accept people when they're presenting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why it's hard for us to sometimes accept others is because we haven't accepted ourselves. Period.
Yeah.
But it's also true that there is so much value in other people's perspectives. It's so much value in diversity. I went to a strategic planning meeting for an organization that I'm a part of. And I think the organization has always cultivated inclusivity, but it was probably more diverse people in the room than they had anticipated years and years ago. And one of the guys who had been a part of the organization for a while, he said, This has been the best meeting that I've attended in the decade that I've been a part of this organization. And he was able to reflect on that because he realized that there was so many people in the room that were sharing their vision with intention, amplifying this mission that they had in a strategic way, that the value was so great. It's like, what have I been missing for the last decade? Right. And some of us are actually probably feeling a little pain from that. It's like, I have been in my circle with the people that I love, that I care about, and I didn't realize there was all these other people that could be loving me and that I could be loving too, that I excluded, rejected, abandoned, right? And now I'm like, I'm 60 years old, or I'm 70, or I'm 50, and I'm like, what have I been doing? Right. There's a reason why we need each other. I need Roxana. I need you.
I need you, Doctor.
I need everybody here to survive. Like, I can't do it by myself. Yeah. I don't want to do. Now I don't even want to do it by myself. There was a part of me that thought my success story is going to be, I'm going to be on this hill and I'll be like, I did it on my own. Right. I did it on my own. Look, you tried to hold me back, but you didn't. And now I'm like, no, I never was able to do anything by myself. Right. And I never will be able to do anything by myself. And I'm grateful for the people who came for a minute. I'm grateful for the people who came for an hour, for a day. Right. Whatever part you played in my life, even if it was a bad part, made me me. Yeah. Thank you. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. I don't know. I don't know if I'm there. I'm renewing my mind every day. Stop acting like I'm there.
I need to choose to forgive, because when I think about my story, I'm sure my family thinks that I'm off the rocker, but I just blew up all the stuff that I was tired of doing. Because I couldn't do it anymore. I could not grow in my job, so I had to leave. Went to a different job, couldn't do the toxicity of that job, and was like, I just can't even pretend long enough to transition.
I don't think we should, I'm going to touch you right now because I'm thinking about how to say this. I don't think that we should regret any decision that we've made. I think it's information. Yeah. I think it's information about what we need. And it's more important for us to take the opportunity when we have an experience and think about, what did I need in that experience? Yeah. And how can I first give it to myself? Because ain't nobody going to give it to you like you can. Yeah. Because nobody know you like you can. But how can I have a circle of sisterhood around me? Yeah. My inner circle of sisterhood and supports with the Burnout to Breakthrough program is my way of saying we need each other, right? Yeah. The solutions, the answers, Dr. KimAnswers is really me recognizing that I couldn't go at it alone. Right. What would have it been like? Can't get my words out. If you, at that time when you were actually struggling, had someone tell you, oh, okay, I get it. Like, you need some time for yourself. That's okay. You need, to do whatever it is that you need to do. Yeah. And that's okay. And I'm here for you. And I got your back. Versus, hey, why don't you, I'm sorry, my shirt messing up here and I'm going to fix it. Why don't you spend more time, reading a book? Or why don't you spend more time working on your leadership skills? Maybe fix that email that you wrote. That is not helpful. Yeah. Right. What we need people to do is when they see you're suffering, to acknowledge it. Yeah. To validate that experience, to say, I'm noticing that you are not feeling good in this place. But again, the only way a person can do that is if they work on themselves. Right. Because if I'm showing up to work hurt, guess what I'm going to do?
Like, why aren't you doing that?
I'm going to hurt other people.
What's going on with you? Yep. Why aren't you producing at this level?
Yeah. And we are in a grind culture, right? It's all about productivity.
And we got to get it done, but yeah.
We create all of this stuff to do, but we don't create enough time to just be, right? That water cooler conversations that some people get to have. I wish I had that in a work environment. I wish people had asked me more about my journey. Yeah. And what I learned along the way. I wish they had cared about me in that way, and maybe they did care and they didn't know how to show it. Who knows? But I do think that it's give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. Audre Lorde said it best, that, taking care of ourselves is radical.
It's radical.
It's not, it's political. Yeah. It's warfare. Yeah. I think it's warfare on a bigger level. It's not even just about Black or Indigenous or women of color leaders. It really is about all of us need to rest, right? Those people who are creating all of this work for everybody else need to rest.
Right.
Sit your butt down.
Right.
Take some time to reflect on your life.
And that's such a good point, because I think a lot of times when we think about leadership, we just think, oh, well, that's fine. They're high functioning. They can do all the things. But that may not be helpful, even that they have to like take that time out.
Mm-hmm. And many of them are miserable and they won't say it because everybody has said to them, you're so successful because you've done all these things. And now even they want to take a break, but they are afraid that if they take time for themselves, what are people going to think about them? You know, I put in the email, I shouldn't be saying this online, but I put in the email when I was leaving my job, I'm taking a health sabbatical. A self-appointed, granted for myself health sabbatical. My job didn't offer me that. They didn't say take a health sabbatical. I did take leave, but I decided that that's what I needed. But it wasn't without cost. I lost money. You know, I worried about, you know, am I going to be able to pay my bills? All of that. But I also said to myself, you will probably never get this chance again. And if you don't do it, what would happen? Yeah. If I don't take this break, what could happen to my family? What could happen to me? Not that I had a lot of health problems.
Stroking out is real.
Black women are having heart
attack is real.
Silent heart attacks. We're having people who go home and commit suicide. You know, we're having people who are stroking or having strokes who really shouldn't be having strokes.
That made me take a deep breath. I mean, we don't think of that as a outcome of burnout. Suicide is an outcome of burnout.
That's not the only outcome. Actually, those other health issues like chronic respiratory issues, asthma.
Yeah, they say asthma.
You know, a lot of those things, gastrointestinal things. Some people have like a lot of issues with their GI system.
I can't. It's the inflammatory one.
Yeah, inflammatory bowel disease.
So that one they said is also linked to the stress. Yeah.
These hormones, these neurotransmitters, I'm going to be scientific right now. These neurotransmitters that's in the brain, that's also in the gut, it's in the heart. It's every part of our body is energy. Every part of our body is energy that's being manifested in a certain way. And you talked earlier about being stuck, and I think I walked away from it because sometimes you can feel stuck for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like if I would be honest with myself and lie to all these people, I was stuck for like 20 years. Almost 20. Actually, I was stuck for 20 years.
Dr. Kim, here you go trying to make me be reflective.
Yeah. And then we have time, but
I'm not trying to cry, but yeah, you saying 20, that rings true for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if I asked my husband, like the change that he's seen from when we first met and what some of the goals that I have to, it's probably 20. Just feeling like you're not moving forward. You're not getting those goals that you want. And I don't think that's enforced from anyone else. That's totally a Roxy thing.
It's my thing.
Me, yeah.
But I think like, I probably should come up with a mnemonic for stuck. But I think when I said I felt stuck, I think I had narrowed my focus so much that I lost sight of all of joy along the way.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking down or looking up sometimes. Sometimes I was looking in the past. Sometimes I was looking forward, but I was never present. You know, I would drive in my neighborhood and I didn't even notice the sign that was put up that was meant for me, you know, like a sign, like something beautiful, something that we all should notice because we're worried about what's coming ahead or what we're trying to run away from. So sometimes stuck can be not necessarily not moving forward because you're a highly successful lady, you know?
And you are as well.
Right.
Which is sad that we feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the nature of kind of the journey of like recognizing that when we narrow our scope and we define our purpose by things that not necessarily what was intended for us.
Yeah.
When we don't cultivate a spirit of reflection, we forget about all of those gifts we have. Look at me. I'm on Instagram using my voice. Right. But I haven't sung in front of a church choir in decades. And I was a singer, right? But I told myself that singing is not going to work for me. I'm never going to be Beyonce. Beyonce is beautiful, right? Beyonce got it made. She got a dad who's going to help her, support her. You know, I said to myself, I'm not going to be a singer, but I can use my voice somewhere else. And I have.
Yeah.
I've spoken on a lot of platforms.
That will still motivating, healing, changing situations. Right. Yeah.
But I think if I hadn't told myself that I couldn't be a certain thing, I would have actually cultivated that too. So remember, whatever you tell yourself, you will manifest.
You're going to have your album out soon.
Hey, I don't know. My sister Carlene.
I'm just saying, because that could be one of the things that you start that'll give you joy. And it doesn't matter if you're a Grammy award lady with booty shorts on the big stage and the cowgirl hat. But it's like, that's just a project that'll give you joy.
And that's what it's about. Like, I find myself, I do this thing because I'm always afraid to be online. I'm like thinking, oh, my hair is straight. You know, this is a necklace.
It just do what it do. When it's this, just
everything.
Do what it do.
You know, all of those things we worry about. I'm a plus size woman. So plus size women worry about, you know, is this arm kind of jiggling right here? I'm showing y'all my jigger right now. Unfiltered.
Wait,
you know, am I all these things that people say that I am?
Right.
But I've been like recording myself just for myself. I write, I reflect in my journal just for myself, and I get so much joy out of it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll share some of those things with the world, and maybe some of it is just for me. But I think when you take that time to pause, like, because sometimes when people, I'm a radical storyteller too. Sometimes when people tell their story, they're just like basically dumping on people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm gonna tell you all the things I've been through, and you feel good for a moment. But everybody around you is like, oh God, I'm so weighed down with your story. Sometimes you need to take some time to sit there and reflect on that story a little bit longer, because you're not prepared to tell your story.
Yeah.
You're just hurting people. And I think that's also true. That's a way of being
reliving, staying in that trauma.
You talked about complaining. Complaining really is just our fear of letting ourselves feel all of our emotions. And so we project it onto other people. That's what really complaining is. It's like, and then you feel like after you did that, blah, 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 you found a solution. And the solution, guess what, is everybody else.
Right.
No, it's not. The answer is inside of you. You're your own problem, right? I do think the most important thing I learned that when I cultivated inner work, my environment changed.
Yeah.
It was profoundly, what just happened here? This person that I was so upset with for years, I'm not going to say who they are, they changed. And I was like, humbled, grateful. I like them now. I didn't like them before.
Yeah.
But I don't think the only thing that changed is I began to like myself. And I began to see that by liking myself, it was okay.
Yeah.
When they're not okay, right?
However they are.
However they are is okay. It's not going to change anything about my inner world, my inner being. But some of us have been betrayed. I mean, literally stabbed in the back, persecuted, mistreated. Those wounds are real.
Yeah.
You know, for the wounded warriors, for the radical storytellers, for the healers, for the people who burned out, for people who have thought of suicide, who have had health issues and thought, man, I must be a fraud. I'm a doctor. I'm a healer, but I'm like broken. You know, there's a space for you too. Like, there's a space for you. And there should be a space for all of us, because we're human.
Yeah.
We're not divine. Some of us may think we're divine, but we're not. But there is a divine. And with a divine presence in your life, you become that mini God, right? For others.
Yeah.
Not that you become God, not that you become the source, but you begin to share the source with others.
Yeah.
We are the light of the world. We are kingdom builders, right? And we are in a time where people like me, people like you need to make ourselves known. That's why I'm on this Instagram doing something that would have made me feel so uncomfortable before.
And that's the funny thing is, now that you said that, I didn't really want to do a podcast, but it just had been a dream in my heart for a while. And when I went through my transition, it's like the Lord kept reminded me, like, you still have to do this thing. And I was like, I don't want to do a YouTube show. I don't want to be on there. Oh, and this is what I bought and blah, blah, blah. So when I got quiet, it's like when he had showed me my preparation was the time on my job, when I did all these presentations about mental health. But now I can talk about God. I can talk about the ugly stuff that I couldn't talk about before. Mm-hmm. So it's like now, it also took that pressure off, like, oh, it has to be perfect, because now this is my product and it is what it is. Exactly. It is what it is, because I don't have energy to make it perfect for the world. Like, and whatever I share, like, I was reading something that was like, oh, you have to be careful. Whatever the Lord has put on my heart to put out there in the world is just what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if someone wants to shame me for it, because I had to learn the lesson and look at myself without the filter of whatever somebody else's judgment is. And you had said that earlier, like, not really holding on to that. It wasn't disappointment. Is that what you said? Like, well,
I said a lot. So
like to the failure, I'm not. You can't hold me to that. Like, if I acted an ass yesterday or the day before yesterday, and that's like, if you have people that love you, like my husband knows, he's like, oh, you're just being an ass today. Okay, I'm gonna just leave you alone and come back to you later. But it's like, you need those people around you that are gonna love you and not be like, and I think the best example is, I remember when my husband and I were going through transition, and I remember I was like, well, you're still doing this, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I haven't done that in like months. I've actually tried not to do that. When's the last time that you remember me doing that? And I was like,
you're right.
It's me. Like, I was trying to hold him to a past version of himself that I hope it saved it. Yep, I think so. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, look.
So we may have lost you guys for a minute. Sometimes, the cosmos.
The technical difficulties.
They don't want to hear the truth. The technical difficulties. There are so much things on the airway that's not good, and so we're doing something good. But, to your point, if people are interested in joining what I call the Rewrite the Narrative movement, you can.
And that's 12 months.
The 12-month Burnout to Breakthrough program is a part of the Rewrite the Narrative movement. But the Burnout to Breakthrough program, a select group of women, I'm looking for 10. Y'all know who y'all are. I'm looking for 10 women to do a 12-month journey with me. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have other women in the inner circle, but those 12 women are invited to get individual coaching from me. And then the other women who are part of the Rewrite the Narrative movement will also get invited to our inner group circles, our healing circles and empowerment circles. And those circles are intended to help you magnify your care, but also your gifts, and go out into the world and help the future generation of leaders.
That's so good. So when we're talking about doing the coaching or not doing the coaching, getting on that path to growth, you and I had kind of joked in the beginning, when we were prepping for the show, and I said, people need to know that sometimes you're not meant to do it by yourself, and you shouldn't do it by yourself at first, I think, because then it's easy to get complacent and kind of be like, I think I'm kind of fine right now anyways. I don't know what that lady is talking about. And there's like no accountability. So even though you have the best intentions, like, prime example, I have a gym outside of my office, and I said I wanted to work out I'm going to work out every day. I haven't done it. And I think one of the things is if I go to my fitness class, it's kind of an accountability there because that instructor is waiting for me. If I get a trainer, that trainer is waiting for me. If I say I'm gonna walk with you, I'm not gonna leave you outside waiting for me. I'm gonna get my butt there. So I think it's so much value to putting your resources to your healing, your time to your healing. So you're going to have to pay a therapist. And guess what? You're going to need a coach. And that person is going to need their money too, because they're putting their time, their energy, their effort into you as well. And I know people don't like to hear that, but I think it's such a pivotal part of us really growing and seeing different mindset, because the self-help thing, I think, is, yes, I can read all those books. So I read all these books. You read a lot of books too. You even read way infinitely more because you went to psychiatrist school. So I can't even imagine. But it's like beyond that, we need someone else's perspective to like really lead us to that breakthrough.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you talk to any coach or, pastor or leader, the ones who are effective are the ones who actually have their own coach and their own team and counsel. I say that to say that oftentimes we invest in things that aren't working because we fear what it would cost us to do it, right? Am I going to let myself feel all this stuff? Like, I'm not ready for that. Like you mentioned that, right? Even like learning a little bit about your inner child is work. Like it's a lot of work. But I would much rather invest in something that actually can work than something that's delusional, right? I have girlfriends and friends, and I'm not picking on anybody, but spend thousands of dollars on vacations every year. In my mind, it's like, maybe I can go on one vacation that year, but that vacation would be better than any vacation I ever went to. Versus multiple vacations to escape, because we do a lot of escapism in our society, to escape. But then say, well, I'm not going to do anything that's going to take care of myself. Right. I don't understand that. Like, and actually we have a culture now, this is a little aside. We have a culture now that's inviting Black women in astronomical numbers to vacation because they realize they can take our money and we're going to spend it to go to that nice place and advertise for their company, how great that vacation site is. I'll do it too. Y'all want to pay me for that? I'm good for that. But I'm telling you that vacation is not going to serve you unless you do the work.
You won't appreciate it as much.
You won't. And so I'm not interested in people who are not willing to do the work.
If they're not
Don't come to me, because if you're not ready, that's going to be a disappointment to you, and you're going to experience it as another failure when it doesn't have to be that way. We don't want anybody to experience rejection, right? Or failure. We want people to feel inspired, encouraged to grow in these 12 months. And even beyond that, some people may need more than 12 months. They may need, I needed a decade to grow. So,
I mean, it's a lifetime on a journey, though. Right. Like, I think we get overzealous into thinking, I'm going to just hit this hard for this amount of time, and that's it. I mean, I think I'm going to say the weight thing again, because that's like something that I have overdone, minimally done. And I think when I have the best results is like consistent and not thinking I'm just going to diet for this amount of time. Like, no, now my mindset is it doesn't matter my size. I need to eat nutritious food. I need to drink my water. I need to make sure I'm getting out to walk. So like even the way that I thought about exercise before was I'm going to do body pump. I love body pump. I'm going to do this. Those things were really hard on my joints to the point now where I'm like limping sometimes because my body hurts. Right. I abused my body in the beginning and now it's like I'm paying the price now. So like just doing things with a different mindset that is not going to be right away. This is like good for me and in the long run.
I want to say this, and I know that we're running out of time. Thank you guys who are still there. And if you have questions, we having some technical difficulties. Please post them. We will respond.
Yes.
But I wanted to say that embodiment is something that we don't do as a society. That's totally different than exercising. That's totally different than in dancing. Embodiment is recognizing that this body that I have has a spirit in it. And I have to free up the spirit by movement.
Yeah.
You know, and it can be any type of form of movement that you want, but it doesn't necessarily require you to do a whole bunch of lifts.
Yeah.
You know, or run like
and be hard on it or
and be hard.
Like that. Yeah.
It means an appreciation, right? Embodiment could be just doing an exercise where you hold yourself and you just rock, right? And you recognize that inside of this body is something that needs, it feels so good. It feels so good. Embodiment is that. When I went to my therapist for a somatic healing, because I had this chest pain that was just like in my chest, it wouldn't go away. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And that was related to some rejection I felt on my job. But with that being my past job, but with that being said, I needed to heal and I was scared. So I went to something that I hadn't done before because, you know, for me, it's been traditional CBT or psychodynamic therapy, medication management, whatever. But somatic healing was real. Oh my gosh, it changed my life. Hypnosis was real. Dr. Kimberly Walker. I mean, she's just amazing. Putting a plug in for her because she's amazing. But that emotional embodiment that I needed, I was missing. And like I had all of this stuff happen to my body that I had not been recognizing before. Like going to work all day and not using the restroom. I mean, I went.
And a lot of people do that.
But a lot of people do that because they're afraid they might have to, you know.
I had to keep working. I had to do this.
Working.
Yeah.
You know, not taking a lunch break, you know, not getting up out of your seat to walk around because you have all these things to do. Embodiment is being intentional about recognizing that your body needs you to rest. Your body needs you to care for it. Your body needs you to move. Like, let's move. We got to do some salsa together. But whatever it is that you need, it's there. You just have to look and search for it. I do hope that some of the women today are inspired by what we talked about.
Hopefully, please leave a like, a comment for this podcast. Follow Dr. Kimberly Gordon Achibe. Is that how you say your last name?
Everybody just say Kim Gordon. That's fine, but it's Achibe. It's Achibe.
Achibe.
I love it. Achibe.
On Dr. Kim Answers on Instagram, drkimanswers.com for her website. Are you on Facebook?